Is this the best PC gaming handheld that you can buy? Recently, Microsoft and ASUS teamed up to release two brand new handhelds, the ASUS ROG Xbox Ally X and the ASUS ROG Xbox Ally. And for some reason, they decided to market these as the new Xbox handheld, which is not at all the case. In fact, these are just Windows PC gaming handhelds. One of them being an awesome Windows PC handheld and the other one not so much. That being said, today's video is only focused on reviewing the Xbox Ally X, a device that I've been using for the last week and honestly really love. If you guys want to check out my full review of the other device, the ROG Xbox Ally, I've already dropped that video a couple days ago, so check it out through the links at the top of the screen. But in this review of the ROG Xbox Ally X, we're going to find out whether this $1,000 handheld is actually worth your money. So before we dive into things, let's just clear a few things up. This is not an Xbox. No matter what Microsoft says, no matter what they title their YouTube videos, this is not an Xbox. This is a Windows PC gaming handheld. Now it does have Xbox's launcher, their full screen experience, which is awesome, but this is not an Xbox. The most Xbox thing about it is probably the Xbox button. So don't think if you go out to buy one of these new ROG Xbox Ally devices that you're getting an actual Xbox handheld. That's not at all what you're getting. In fact, this can't even play a lot of Xbox games. This can play Game Pass games, which to be fair, a lot of devices can play. In reality, this is kind of just a Xbox-themed ASUS ROG Ally X 2. And if you think of it that way, this is actually one of the best handheld gaming PCs I've ever used. In fact, it might be the best. Like I said, I've been using this handheld every day for the last week since it launched. I actually bought this and the other ASUS ROG Xbox Ally device. So I spent my own money on these. These were not sent to me. And it's so interesting to me that you've got two devices that look so similar, albeit the color, yet they're so different. One is awesome and one is just a bad value. I'm actually planning to drop a full comparison video between the ROG Xbox Ally and a Steam Deck OLED to let you guys know which one I think is actually worth your money, even though the Steam Deck OLED is a significantly older device. Stay tuned for that and let me know in the comment section down below if you want to see me do any other comparison videos. But when it comes to the Xbox Ally X, there's so much new and good about this device, and even the Xbox overlay that they put on there really makes this better than any of the other gaming handhelds that I've used. So right off the bat, the biggest and most notable change is the industrial design and the ergonomics. When comparing this device to last year's ASUS ROG Ally X, you can see there's a pretty major difference. While yes, there are a lot of similarities, this one has two giant handles sticking off the back. Now to be honest with you, the original ASUS ROG Ally X was not an uncomfortable device. I actually used this device more than any of my other devices. It felt good in the hand, and while no, it wasn't as comfortable as something like the Steam Deck, it still felt good and I really had no complaints. But boy, when ASUS cut a controller in half and glued it onto the side of this device, this is the most comfortable handheld device that I have ever used. I'm talking more comfortable than the Steam Deck, more comfortable than a Game Boy Advance, more comfortable than any other handheld device that I've ever used. Maybe the PlayStation Portal being tied with it, but that doesn't really count because it's a streaming device. But it is a very similar feel. Like they basically cut a PlayStation 5 controller in half and glued it onto the side of the screen. That's really how this feels, except with an Xbox controller instead. Well, presumably an Xbox controller. I don't think it's actually a controller cut in half, but feels closer to an Xbox controller, as it should. To be fair, being an Xbox device. Both the ROG Xbox Ally and the ROG Xbox Ally X feel incredible in the hand, and that is by far the best part of this device. Sure, there are huge performance improvements on the ROG Xbox Ally X, and we'll talk about that, and that's wonderful, but dude, seriously, this is the best part, and I love it. Now, grips aside, the device is actually very similar in almost every other way to the original ASUS ROG Ally X. The thickness seems to be about the same. The button placement is very similar. It's not identical, we'll talk about that in a second, but it's very similar. The USB-C placement, the fingerprint reading power button, the micro SD card slot, the audio jack, all those sorts of things are all still in the same place. The customizable buttons on the back, they're still in the same place. They're still like not in the way, which is awesome. The D-pad, I guess fortunately or unfortunately for some people, is basically the same. It does feel a bit mushier on this new device, but like not a huge amount. Still pretty clicky though, and you can do some nice rolls with it, so I actually don't mind it. Now, one area that I did not expect to be a huge improvement was actually the analog sticks. From what I can tell on the new Xbox Ally and Ally X, you actually have slightly higher analog sticks, and they feel significantly better. They're full-size analog sticks, and honestly, looking at them side by side, they don't look any taller, but they do feel, I mean, I think they are taller, but they do feel significantly better, like noticeably so. Maybe it's the way that my hand is gripping the controller and the angle at which my thumb is touching the analog stick, but for whatever reason, they feel so much more natural. Maybe it really is the grip shape, I don't know. Now, a really interesting addition that is only on the ROG Xbox Ally X, the more expensive device, is the fact that you've got Hall effect triggers, which you have on the other cheaper version of the device, but you've got haptic triggers. Now, if you just have the cheaper ROG Xbox Ally, or maybe one of the older Ally devices, you're not gonna miss it because you don't know what you're missing, but playing this side by side to either of these two older or I guess cheaper devices, you will notice that there's a difference, and it is a really nice addition. Another nice addition that's exclusive to the Xbox Ally X is the two Type-C USB ports. While you have those on the other two devices, this one is a USB 3.2 port, the other one is a USB 4 port, or a Thunderbolt 4 port, which means that you can not only connect displays, which you can do with the other 3.2 port, but you can also connect external GPUs, which is cool. The speakers on this device, to my knowledge, are very similar, if not the same, to not only the ASUS ROG Ally X, but also the cheaper Xbox Ally. They sound great. They're front firing. They sound honestly incredible. Really blown away by their loudness and also their clarity. But now let's talk about some things that I don't like, and I mentioned this in my other review as well. The angle at which the screen is placed, it kind of comes up like this, which is not your standard angle when it comes to a PC gaming handheld, so you kind of actually have to hold your hands in a different way to really get a good view of the screen. And I think that's due to a couple things. One, they just decided to make the angle weird. And two, which is the more likely reason, is because of the way the grips are placed. So it kind of forces you to hold the device like this, which is frustrating when I really would like to hold the device more like this. And if you look at the older Ally X, the grips kind of force you to hold the device like this, which is like straight with your eyes, whereas this one, you kind of have to hold it like this, but then turn your hands up a little bit, which is a little weird, or kind of sit in a weird way. It wasn't a deal breaker. I did have to change sometimes the way that I was sitting so I could get some reflections off the screen, but wasn't a big deal. Another thing I don't love are the menu buttons on either side of the screen. Usually the start and select button are at the top, or at least they were on the original ASUS ROG Ally and Ally X. For some reason on the Xbox versions, they've moved the start and select button down to the bottom buttons, and the top buttons are now your library button and the Armory Crate button, which is frustrating because I was so used to playing the other device that I kept clicking the top buttons by accident, and we'll talk about this in a second, but it's not easy to load back into games, or it's not as easy as it would be if you were playing on an actual Xbox, so it makes it frustrating. Now, one other addition, speaking of Xbox, is the Xbox button right there, which is kind of just like a home menu button, as it is on a regular Xbox. Now, interestingly enough, this button not only gives you the option to go home, but it also gives you the option to open Armory Crate, or the Armory Crate overlay. What's also interesting is that you can do that with the Armory Crate button. So it seems like that's a little redundant. And my guess, now that I've been thinking about it more, as to why it's like that, is because Xbox wanted a big Xbox button on this device to make it an Xbox, and they didn't just want to change the Armory Crate button to the Xbox button. Or maybe ASUS didn't want to get rid of the Armory Crate button. I'm not totally sure, but either way, they have two buttons that do similar things. In this case, I feel like the Armory Crate button is redundant because the Xbox button can get you to Armory Crate. That being said, I do use the Armory Crate button a lot because I want to change the TDP or add the real-time monitor or change the resolution or whatever the case is. But I guess since we're talking about the Xbox button, let's talk about the Xbox full screen experience, which in a lot of ways is a bright spot on this handheld. My favorite part about the full screen experience is that when you turn on the device and you sign in, you still have to go through that stupid Windows sign in, you load right into the full screen experience. In fact, Windows Desktop and all the tasks that go along with that doesn't load at all, so you're able to actually save system memory, which is incredible. This is what we've been asking for handheld gaming PCs for a long time. And while it's not perfect, there's a lot of features and additions that I don't like. Like, I don't like the constant ads. I mean, it looks like an Xbox, so of course you're gonna get constant ads. I don't need the Game Pass section, because I never use Game Pass, although it is. I mean, I subscribed and I did play some games on Game Pass to test it out. The cloud gaming button, fine. Library button, fine. There are things that I don't love about it, but regardless, it's 10 times better than launching games from the desktop. So much better. But things get kind of weird when you start to realize that the stuff that you need to do to use this device is kind of separated or fragmented throughout a bunch of different launchers. For example, when you first get this device, you have to install a bunch of stuff. You have to update a bunch of things, right? If this was an actual Xbox device, you'd probably get a pop-up that says, update your console, and you'd be good. But it's not. This is a Windows PC. So the first thing you have to do is go into Armory Crate, go over to the updating section. Actually, I don't think I can even do it here. I have to actually go into Armory Crate SE, go over to the Update Center, and then update your device. Within Update Center, there's the Armory Crate update, and then there's like the main system updates, which has your BIOS and your graphics updates and things like that. That's one way that you have to update the device. Now, if you want to update Xbox or anything Windows, you actually have to back out to the Windows desktop and then update through the regular Windows updater. So there are two different ways you have to update this device, and they're not clear at all about how to do that. Now, the good thing is, if you used one of these devices before, you do know how to do that. It's not rocket science. But if you're coming from a console or you've never used a Windows PC before, it's frustrating and it takes way longer than just updating your console. It's very frustrating that they're calling this an Xbox because that is not at all what it is. This is a Windows PC, and it acts like a Windows PC with all the quirks and the features. Shout out Doug DeMiro. Yes, the Xbox full screen experience does make this a better Windows PC experience, especially for a handheld gaming device. You don't have to click around those tiny little X's and deal with the touchscreen problems. In fact, most things you can do with just the buttons, even typing in your PIN now, they've mapped buttons to that, so it's even easier. It's not an Xbox, and it doesn't feel like an Xbox. Now, remember how I said the desktop background tasks don't run when you're using full screen mode? Well, that changes if you go to the actual desktop, which I only did once to find out if there was actually still a desktop there, and there was. So you're probably never gonna do that. The weird thing is though, if you decide to go back to the Xbox full screen experience, it'll actually prompt you to restart the device because those tasks don't turn off. They just don't turn on when you turn on the device. So not to harp on the Xbox thing, but because it was such a big marketing thing for them, I feel like I probably should. Generally, when you buy a new Xbox console, you can get it up and running in like 10-15 minutes. With this, it took me like 30 minutes to 45 minutes to download all the updates. Actually, to be honest with you, when I first got this device, it took me like an hour. The white one, the cheaper one that I set up after, took me like 30-40 minutes because I knew what I was doing. With this one, I was kind of fumbling around and trying to figure it out. It took me an hour. It was literally like setting up a new Windows PC because that's exactly what it was. It was a little bit simpler, I guess, but that's what it was. All right, so enough of that. Let's talk about the good. This handheld is powerful. It probably at the moment is the most powerful handheld out there that's widely available. The Xbox Ally X comes with an AMD Ryzen AI Z2 Extreme chip, and it is blazingly fast. The cheaper Xbox Ally comes with an AMD Ryzen Z2A, which is a slightly faster chip than what you get in the Steam Deck OLED, a much older handheld. So this chugs, whereas this kind of jogs along or runs, depending on your settings. Not only that, the Ally X has 24 gigabytes of RAM, which is more than the 16 gigabytes in the cheaper version, which again, really helps performance. And I will say that I was thoroughly impressed gaming on this device. I was able to run Battlefield 6 in 1080p at the full overkill graphics settings, obviously with the turbo TDP, the 25 watt TDP, and it ran well. I mean, I wasn't getting the best frame rates, but I was able to play it like it was actually playable. Now, generally when I played Battlefield 6, I would use a 25 watt TDP because I wanted that full performance, and I'd run it at auto graphics settings, so it would run very smoothly. And of course, you can check out the frame rates that I'm getting for this game and all the games that I test in today's video on the screen. The Xbox Ally X is designed to run at 1080p, whereas the Xbox Ally is designed to run at 720p. So the display in this device is a 1080p display, as it is on the Xbox Ally, and actually the Ally X from 2 years ago, the display itself is exactly the same, from what I can tell, as it was before, which is frustrating. It's 500 nits of peak brightness, which is bright enough. It's a 7-inch IPS display, it's got FreeSync, it's capable of up to 120 Hertz, and to be fair, it is a good screen. It's just an older screen. They just didn't update the display, which I was kind of hoping that they would. I was hoping for an OLED. That would probably get a lot more expensive, like the Lenovo Legion Go 2, but they gave us the same display. And again, it's fine, it's crisp, it's clear, the colors are nice, everything's great. But when you compare it to like the Steam Deck OLED, you're like, oof, man, it just looks so much better. Now the resolution's lower on the Steam Deck OLED, but it still looks nicer. I'd still much rather have that display than this display. Now the screen is protected by Gorilla Glass Victus, and it also comes with, I believe, a DXC anti-reflective coating, which you can kind of judge for yourself. It gets the job done. It's not the best, it's not the worst, but it does get the job done. Now where this handheld really jumps ahead of the cheaper priced competition, the Xbox Ally, is that you actually get 1 terabyte of internal storage. You can also expand it with a micro SD card slot at the top, but that does give you a lot more room to download games. I only was able to download like 5 or 6 on the Xbox Ally. On this guy, I haven't even fully filled it up yet, to be honest with you. I think I've got like 8 or 9. And I also plan to keep this handheld as my daily handheld, so I can either upgrade the SSD internally or I can add the micro SD card, which I'll probably do because it's easier, at least for me as someone who's not as techie as a lot of people probably watching the channel. Shouldn't have called this Tech Fowler, I should have called this fan of consumer tech Fowler. Getting back into gaming performance though, the games ran incredibly smoothly. You can run pretty much any game that you want to on this handheld with medium settings, and it looks good. It doesn't chug along. You can get between 30 to 60 frames per second depending on the game. Really, really great gaming experience. And again, as of right now, it does seem to be the most powerful, widely available gaming handheld. That may change when we get the Lenovo Legion Go 2. I haven't had a chance to really check out all those tech specs yet. It's been a really great experience, and it eats through games. It's incredible, especially when you run it at the higher TDPs. But speaking of TDPs, let's talk about battery life. The battery in the Xbox Ally X is the same battery that you have in the ASUS ROG Ally X. It's an 80 watt-hour battery. It is bigger than the 60 watt-hour battery that you get in the Xbox Ally, and you do notice a difference. This device generally gets, on a 15 watt TDP, playing a standard game like a Forza or something, around 2.5 to 2 hours and 40 minutes, at least from my own personal experience. If you're really trying to chug and play like some Battlefield at 25 watt TDP, then yeah, it's gonna last you like an hour and a half. But generally, most AAA games, if you're playing at like a 15 watt TDP, medium settings, you're gonna get about 2.5 hours with it. Obviously that changes depending on the kind of game that you're playing. If you're playing something like a Hollow Knight, then yeah, you're gonna get a lot more time with it. Or a retro video game, you might get 6 hours or 7 hours. But the games that I like to play, like 2K, Madden, Horizon, Battlefield 6, like those games are gonna chew through battery. I've had a blast playing games on this device, an absolute blast. It chews through games. Now to be honest with you, a lot of this review does sound very similar to my review that I just dropped on the Xbox Ally, but that's because in a lot of ways these devices are almost identical. The shape, the form factor, the buttons, or at least most of the buttons, are identical. The Xbox full screen experience, the fact that it's running Windows, like all of those things are the same on both devices. But the things that make these two devices different are really what make one device good and one device just not worth the money. And that's, well, one, the price. I mean, priced at $999, this device is expensive, but when you compare it to other similarly spec devices like the MSI Claw 8AI Plus, which comes in at $1029 or $1049, and the upcoming Lenovo Legion Go 2, which comes in at $1349, it seems like a pretty reasonably priced device for what you're getting. Obviously, it doesn't come with an OLED screen like the Lenovo Legion Go, but still, it's not a bad deal. The cheaper Xbox Ally, sure, it comes with a new chip, but the chip isn't very powerful. You don't get a lot of RAM. You don't get a lot of storage space. It's just all around like an kind of device. It's like, I would say buy a Steam Deck OLED over that device because it's a little bit cheaper and the screen looks better. The Xbox Ally X, though, is a performance beast. In a lot of ways, it is similar to last year's ROG Ally X. There are some improvements. Obviously, the ergonomics being the main one, but also the processor. You still have the same battery. I believe the RAM is still the same, and I think the storage size is still the same. So there's a lot of things that are similar, but this device runs games, I wouldn't say noticeably more smoothly, but definitely more smoothly than the Ally X, and I do think that's a big plus. And again, this Xbox full screen experience, while yes, it is probably coming to every other device, it's great, and I really like it, and it's much better than using the Windows desktop. That is another huge improvement. It does have its quirks, it does have its problems, and a lot of those are self-inflicted because Microsoft called this an Xbox, which was so dumb, but it's a great handheld, and I do think if you're buying your first PC gaming handheld, you got a lot of cash to throw around, you want something really powerful, this has to be in the conversation, and in my mind, as of right now, this is the one to get. I love the MSI Claw 8AI Plus. In my opinion, that's the only other one that really holds a candle to this currently. We'll have to wait and see what happens with the Lenovo Legion Go 2, but genuinely, I 100% think that the ROG Xbox Ally X is worth it, and I definitely recommend it if you can afford it. If you can't, you want to grab something cheaper, don't grab the Xbox Ally, grab a used ROG Ally X. It's a very similar handheld and it still runs all the games really well, better than the Xbox Ally. Seriously, go this route before you go Xbox Ally route. But again, if you've got $1,000 to throw around, this is the way to go. I love it. But hey, with all that being said, let me know your thoughts on both the Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally X in the comment section down below. Did you grab either of these devices? Are you waiting for the Lenovo Legion Go 2? Again, review is coming on the channel soon, so stay tuned for that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.